Welcome to the Modern Taoist with Kit Man. Ancient wisdom, modern life, and the way. Visit us online at taoananda.com or find us on all the socials. Now, the Modern Taoist.
All right, and welcome to this episode of the Modern Taoist. Now, normally these episodes are dropping on Tuesday mornings, but I have to be honest with you, with everything that went on this past week, and I'm not going to get into the minutia of it, but I really felt like I needed to get an episode out about just the hate that's going on in the world right now. And when you decide you want to do this, the Tao just kind of spins you in a specific direction. And once I decided I wanted to do this episode, I wrote it, the bullet points, in 10 minutes. It went very fast. And usually what I do for these episodes is I sit down and I write the bullet points. I don't script everything because that's not I always laugh because when I finish one of the episodes, my wife listens to it. I always go, did I ramble? Did I? Because once I see the bullet point, I just get going. And this one, it came really easily and really fast. So I just want to thank you for being here. I am going to do a lighthearted episode after this one, because we got a great question that showed up. So I may actually do 2 episodes at a time and just drop them both this week. In fact, I think that is what I'm going to do. So if this one's a little heavy for you, there'll be another one up there that you can check out. So why this episode? Why now? I think it's pretty obvious, right? When we look at the headlines, it feels like hate has been given a megaphone. Political violence isn't something distant or from the 60s or that rare anymore. We see it in America, where divisions turn into attack. We see it in other parts of the world where protests spiral into brutality, where neighbors are being set against neighbors, where violence is used as a language of power. And when you're not a violent person, or when you're just trying to get through life, all of this hate and violence rhetoric can feel overwhelming. It can feel like the world is filling with more rage than reason and more bitterness than ever before. And I think that's why this episode matters now, because we can't pretend that we live apart from it. Even if we're in our homes and we're not the ones marching or shouting, the hate filters down. It shows up in conversations. It shows up in the news. It shows up with things our family posts online, in the ways communities fracture for no reason, in the heaviness of the public debate. And for a lot of people, it seeps into their daily life in quieter ways. And this is what we have to be very wary of, is how it gets into us in a quiet way. Suspicion, resentment, dirty looks, words designed to hurt our feelings. Now, Taoism doesn't tell us hate will disappear. Far from it. You got to remember, let's look at the history. The Tao Te Ching was written in a time of warlords and rival states and endless fighting. Human nature hasn't changed. What Taoism offers isn't a fantasy of peace, but a path of walking through that divided world without letting it poison who we are. So here's the question for today. How do we live with hate in others without carrying it ourselves? How do we live when the hate is being bombarded at us so hard that it's very, very, very emotionally difficult not to absorb it and not to return it, just from a sense of self-defense? So this isn't a conversation about ignoring hate. And it's not a call to surrender to it either. It's about clarity, daily practice, and balance. Those are the Taoist tools that let us move through the world without losing our nature and our ever-loving minds. So let's talk about what hate is and how not to absorb it. Hate is not an idea on a page. It isn't something historians write about or something we see in dramatic images on the news. Hate shows up every day, very close to home. It may be a neighbor who holds on to suspicion. It may be a family member who cannot let go of a grudge. I know this one very intimately. It may be people that insist on dragging every conversation back to old wounds. It may be the person you encounter at work or at the market or in your community who radiates resentment towards anyone that seems different from them. And in the digital age, it comes from strangers we've never even met. People that hurl insults and anger into the air simply because they can. The truth is, hate is very, very ordinary. That doesn't make it less dangerous, but it does mean that we can't and should not treat hate as rare or unusual. Sometimes we like to believe that every person is good. And that's just simply not true. The world is far too big for every person to be good. We live alongside this hate all the time. We share its sidewalks, its workplaces, and the public spaces with people who carry it openly. So the Taoist question is not whether we can remove hate from the world. We simply cannot. The question is, how can we live in a world where hate exists without letting it shape us into something that we're not? For many of us, that temptation is to meet hate with more hate. When someone attacks, we want to strike back. When someone dismisses us, we want to dismiss them even harder. That'll show you. This is human nature. This is human instinct. But it's also the cycle that keeps hate alive. And Taoism calls us to step outside that cycle. Not by ignoring hate. Not by pretending it isn't there, but by refusing to let it be the terms set in our life. The Tao Te Ching reminds us that in the world, the world holds what it calls the 10,000 things. Chapter 2 says, when people see some things as beautiful, other things become ugly. When people see some things as good, other things become bad. In other words, every quality rises alongside its opposite. You can't have joy without sorrow, kindness without cruelty, softness without hardness, love without hate. To walk the Tao is not to erase these pairs or imagine a life where only the pleasant half exists, because you will be left imagining, and that's not a place to live. Live in reality. Realize that not everyone is good. The pleasant half is not the only thing that exists. We need to recognize that both sides belong to the whole, and then find our balance within it. Hate will always exist in this world. but it does not have to become our way of life. It's not easy. Anyone who has ever been the target of hate knows that words leave marks. They can stay with you long after the argument is over, long after the person has walked away. I know this firsthand. I was in the radio and television business for a long time. I got so much hate mail for something as silly as criticizing a musician. And the things they said to me stuck with me, even though I did not let it affect me, I thought. Taoism doesn't ask us to pretend that hurt doesn't exist. What it asks us is, will we let that hurt define us? Or will we find a way to stay aligned with the flow, with the Tao, even when others are caught up in an imbalance? And that's the work that I try to do today in this episode. Because we live surrounded by the hate. The danger isn't only what others might do to us. The greater danger is what we might let grow inside ourselves. Hate, my friends, is contagious. It spreads and invites us to mirror it. And once we carry it, we spread it. That's how the cycles of bitterness open and deepen. Families and communities and entire nations. Once you allow it inside of you, you will spread it. So framing the problem in Taoism terms is simple. Hate exists. It hurts. But it does not have to take root in you. Our task is not to erase it from the world, but to keep it from becoming our nature. When people first hear about Taoism, they often worry it sounds too passive. Doesn't this just mean letting people walk over you? Doesn't it mean ignoring problems and pretending everything is fine? I mean, that's a real question that many, many Westerners have about Taoism, especially Christians. I don't know why, especially Christians, but they really like to revel in the fact that you're going to get pushed around and pushed over if you don't stand up, push back. And that fear, I suppose, is understandable because Taoism does talk about yielding and being soft and stepping aside, but yielding is not the same thing as surrender. Think about going up to a street corner and it's unmarked. There's no stop signs and there's people coming both directions. You choosing to yield and let the car pass in front of you is not surrendering to the car. It's saving damage. It's saving chaos. You're not stopping. You're not surrendering. You're just saying, okay, you go ahead and I'll go after you. Taoism is not an invitation to be a victim. Believe me. It is a call to live in clarity so you can act without being dragged into cycles that destroy you. And that, my friends, is not easy. For even the most devout and practicing Taoist, it is not easy. Taoism doesn't say do nothing. It says don't waste yourself on the actions that only feed the cycle. Meeting hate with hate doesn't resolve anything. It multiplies it. At the same time, swallowing hate and carrying it inside doesn't resolve anything either. It corrodes you. Taoism gives you another way. Recognize hate for what it is and leave it to the one that carries it. It sounds simple. It's not easy, though. Picture being insulted face to face. Someone questions your worth, your intelligence, your dignity. That pull is immediate. Defend yourself, strike back, prove them wrong. If you hold back, you feel weak. But here's the Taoist question. Does responding in kind change the situation at all for the better? Does it change their heart? Or does it just plant their anger inside of you? You walk away carrying their words like rocks in your pocket. You've now let them define who you are. That's exactly what Taoism helps us to avoid. Chapter 8 of the Tao Te Ching describes water as the highest good, right? It nourishes all things without competing. It flows to the low places that others avoid, and in doing so, it becomes essential. Water doesn't absorb the hardness of the rock it passes. It remains water. That image is for us to stay true to our nature, flow past the harshness of others without letting it become you. Think about community life, maybe a local, you see these videos all the time of these local meetings turning ugly. Voices rise, people single each other out. You have choices at that point. You can fight back and the conflict grows. You can swallow it and replay their words all night long, and bitterness grows inside of you, or you can acknowledge that anger belongs to them. I'm not keeping that. Keep your voice steady. Decline the invitation to mirror their rage, and carry yourself home without their poison inside of you. That's not pacificity, that's strength. Imagine being at work. A colleague undercuts you in front of others, clearly fueled by resentment that they have of you for whatever reason. Your natural response is sharpness, to embarrass them as they embarrassed you. But ask yourself, does that keep you aligned with who you are? Does that make you a mirror of them? The Taoist way is not to shrink back silently, but to answer without absorbing. Set your boundary with clarity. Simply reply, that isn't accurate. Here's the truth. And then let your bitterness stay with them. You walk away with your balance intact. Hate belongs to the one that carries it. When you take it on, you make their imbalance your own. So when someone says, is Taoism just pacificity? Pacificity? Yeah. You know what I mean? The answer is no. I'm an educated man. What's the word? Taoism is active clarity. It's the decision to remain aligned with your nature instead of letting others decide who you're going to be. Okay? You understand? With that understanding, you can then begin to explore how compassion and distance, and that's important to remember that word, how compassion and distance can work together. Because for many people, the hardest part of practicing distance is the feeling that it makes you look weak. That walking away from a fight, excusing yourself from an argument, or refusing to be drawn in to chaos can feel like you're the one backing down. And in a culture that prizes being right, being loud, being dominant, distance is often very misunderstood. Taoism teaches us that distance is not weakness. It's strength expressed in another form. Two lions and their child walk into a clearing and suddenly are surrounded by a herd of gigantic elephants that want to stomp on them if they get aggressive. Does the alpha male lion immediately start attacking the elephants? Of course not. His strength in leading his family is to look at the situation and say, you know what, fellas, we're in the wrong clearing. Distance is not a retreat into cowardice. It's the deliberate choice not to step into another person's clearing. If you're in a situation where someone lashes out, they are inviting you to meet them in the heat of their imbalance. If you accept that invitation, you are then swept up into their fire. Think about a family gathering. A relative that carries bitterness decides to bring it to the family table. They bait you with words. They mean to start a fight. You have options. You can either argue and the meal collapses into tension. You can sit quietly, fuming inside, carry that resentment home with you. Or you can calmly set a boundary. I am not having this conversation with you right now. And then step away from the table. Some might think you're weak. Those people have that hate already spinning them out of balance. Strength is not always the louder voice. Sometimes it's the voice that chooses quiet and walks on. Taoism values balance. Balance requires clarity. The number one question that Taoist teachers get all the time: I don't understand how I can get into balance. And most of the time the answer is because you don't have clarity yet. And clarity requires you to realize what is and what isn't yours in any situation. Hate belongs to the one that carries it. Compassion lets you see that for what it is. Distance keeps it from becoming yours. And in that act of choosing not to enter their firestorm, you're not weak, you're refusing. You are strong enough to say, there is 0 point in me piloting my boat into the middle of a hurricane when I could easily just go around the hurricane. Distance is not a permanent separation. You can step aside in a heated moment without abandoning someone. You can reduce contact without cutting someone out of your life. That's not what we're talking about here. Distance is a tool. It's a space-giving tool that gives you room to breathe. When you hear that voice in your head saying, if I walk away, I'm weak, just pause for a second. And ask yourself which is harder, fighting to prove yourself or stepping aside to preserve balance. Which takes more strength, being dragged into their storm or simply refusing to enter? Walking away is courage. Ideas about hate are important, but without practice, they stay abstract. You see what I'm saying? Taoism is not just about a philosophy to think about. It is a way of living in practice. When the hate comes near you, you need something you can actually do in the moment, right? It is not easy for many people to just walk away or step aside. So you have to practice. You have to learn. Here's some practices that are drawn from Taoist tradition throughout the ages that help you hold your balance. So let me just give you a few. The body feels hate before your mind does. Okay? Your chest will get tight, your breath will shorten, your stomach will knot up. When someone directs anger your way, these are physical reactions that you have before you even recognize what is going on. So grounding your body is a simple way to stop those sensations from overwhelming you. Plant both of your feet firmly on the ground. If you're sitting and doom scrolling, stand up. Plant your feet on the ground. Bend your knees slightly, and then feel your weight drop into the earth. In Taoist thought, this connection restores balance. It's imagining all of the weight in your body dropping to the earth, and you're simply attached at the feet. Even 30 seconds of doing this can remind you that you belong to the earth, not to another person's chaos. Breathing is another anchor. Breathing is more than biology. It's a tool for returning to clarity. Hate makes you breathe shallow and fast. The Taoist practice is to slow that down. So how do you do that? A simple way is to place your hand, do it right now, even if you're not angry. I hope you're not angry right now, but do it anyway. Place your hand on your abdomen. Inhale gently through your nose and allow your belly to rise. Then exhale through your mouth and allow your belly to sink. Repeat this for 3 or 4 cycles. Leave your hand right there, though, so you can feel it. This simple shift calms the nervous system and keeps hate from finding a home. Another practice is when hate hits you and that weight of hate clings to you, movement can release it. Walking meditation is not about reaching a destination. It's about being present. Step away. Feel your heel touch the earth. Then the ball of your foot, then your toes. Let each step carry away a little of what does not belong to you. Take a 5-minute walk. Even 5 minutes can remind you that the path is wider than the anger that you have. Maybe not that you have specifically, but that you have encountered. And sometimes, finally, the most powerful force and the most powerful practice is just simply stillness, not frozen in silence, but the pause that comes from clarity. When the hate presses you to respond, stillness gives you space to choose. Become a stillness addict. Okay? I talk about stillness addiction all the time. That's the one addiction that you want. Instead of reacting, wait, breathe. This is the one practice that led me the most, what's the word I'm looking for? The easiest way to find my path. I was a very angry young man because of abuse and a bad home situation, things like that. Learning to be still, to take a breath, and let the moment open before you act was the number one thing that gave me a sense of inner strength. Before I learned to do that, I would snap at a moment, defend, reflect their anger tenfold, overcoming their power with my power. But when I realized that that was causing my soul, my innerness to crack, I learned the art of being a stillness addict. I simply take a moment to breathe before I respond. Sometimes it gives you the opportunity to decide there is no response at all even necessary. Your mind replays hateful words long after the moment has passed. Visualization can help you break that cycle. Picture the words or the encounter as leaves floating on the river. Watch them drift away. Notice their shapes. Let them move downstream. You're not going into the water after them. You remain on the bank, steady, dry. This singular image is enough to keep you from carrying this anger until tomorrow. And finally, in a very real way, and I don't often talk about this because I'm going to admit I don't do this myself. It's not a practice that has ever felt really comfortable for me. But for many, many people, after a difficult encounter, taking 5 minutes to write or journal what happened in plain terms, then write one line about what you are not going to carry forward. It may be as simple as their anger is theirs, not mine. Writing it down closes that loop for many people. It makes the difference between experiencing hate and absorbing it. Again, it's not a practice that I've ever done because it doesn't align with me. But any of those practices, the visualization of the leaves, journaling, being a stillness addict, going for a walk, using your breath, grounding your body, any of these things will help you step back and see the larger picture. What truths can we carry with us into daily life? And can we keep them simple enough to guide us every time hate shows up? These are very simple solutions that I just gave you that sound really overly simple, but they work. So the takeaway from this episode, I think, is we have 3 truths and then you have 3 practices. The 3 truths are: truth 1, hate belongs to the one that carries it. You don't have to drink what someone else is pouring. Their anger, their resentment, their prejudice, these are weights that they've chosen to hold, and you can choose to not hold. This doesn't mean pretending the harm isn't real. It means you refuse to let their burden become your burden. Truth number 2, compassion does not cancel boundaries. It's possible to see that someone's hate comes from fear or pain without making it your job to heal them or absorb the fire. Compassion can be as simple as recognizing this person is unbalanced. I'm going to take some distance, get clear, because I don't want to live in the storm that exists in this moment. And truth number 3, this may be the hardest truth to believe. Softness is strength. Tao Te Ching chapter 76 reminds us when alive, the body is soft and flexible. When you're dead, it's hard and stiff. All living things are soft and flexible. Stiff and unyielding are the companions of death. In other words, what bends endures. Softness is not weakness. It's the strength that keeps us alive, the strength that survives. And your 3 practices that I would suggest that you at least try are the breathing test, the river test, and a simple boundary statement. That's theirs, not mine. Say it silently or out loud if needed. That is theirs, not mine. That is not my barrel. Those are not my monkeys. And you're not saying this for them. You're saying it for you. It marks the line between what you witness and what you take in. We're never going to erase hate from the world. We're not going to stop political violence. We're not going to heal every family wound or silence every cruel voice, but these practices do something more important. They keep you free. They keep you aligned with your own nature instead of letting others shape your life for you. So when hate appears in the news, online, in your community, return to these truths. Remind yourself the hate is not mine. Hate is loud. It shouts in the headlines. It stirs up crowds. It tries to make itself the only voice in the room. But the Tao is steady. It doesn't compete for attention. It doesn't shout back. It flows and endures whether you're screaming or not. So the invitation for you today is simple. Don't let the noise of hate decide who you are. You can't stop other people from carrying anger or bitterness. But you can decide not to hold it for them. You can walk your own path. So when you feel hate close in words and looks or just in the air, just pause. Feel your feet. Take 3 slow breaths. With each exhale, realize what isn't yours. Imagine all the pain and the anger drifting away like smoke and let yourself return to the ground beneath you. That's it. No long ritual, no complex rules, just a moment to remember that your balance is yours. And as you move back into your life, into your family, your work, your daily rhythms, carry this with you. You are not here to defeat hate. You are here to live in the Tao. And living the Tao means you remain free. And thank you for listening today. Walk in this path with me. Hate is not an easy topic to discuss sometimes. But right now we need to, because too many people are letting it roar through them when it doesn't need to. Thanks for listening to The Modern Taoist, and I hope you join us on the next episode. The next episode is going to be lighter. I'm going to tell you, we got an email from somebody who wanted to know, is there any such thing as a Taoist superhero? And we're going to talk about that on the next episode of The Modern Taoist. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Modern Taoist with Kit Man. Visit us online at dawananda.com or find us on all the socials. Please like or subscribe on this platform, and thanks again.